Hey everybody, it's Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong, and I'm here with the final art journal that we've been working on. Today's been a beautiful day. I woke up to a warmer day than yesterday. Jason and I went for a hike on the beautiful Eno River this afternoon, right before and sort of as it started raining. I came back to the house, came out to my workshop with something to drink, and it's just beautiful out here. I can hear the rain falling. I've got my heater going, and this journal is complete. This isn't going to be a tutorial video so much as just a recap. We really only had one more spread and we had the final page, so I want to show you what I did. At the end of a project, sometimes I go back through and do what feels like just some intuitive touching up. I might use the last scraps of paper, take what's left of the paint. I might add touches here and there and maybe, more scribbling, whatever. I did add some glass charms, beautiful beads to the string on the outside of the journal. I love this journal. I think it's so beautiful. I encourage you, if you're drawn to an image, to research if you can find out who it is you're looking at and who painted it or who took the picture. I learned so much about this beautiful opera singer. Her name is Sissy Retta. She was called the Black Patty. I would encourage you to read about her life and what she did for others, and just the beautiful voice, the way her life ended. Some of these things are very, very touching, and they leave me thinking about them for a long time. She was a real part of history, and I love that she's on the cover of the book. I did add what looks like sort of a random or abstract light post out here on the edge because this piece was a little bit flimsy, and I didn't want it to feel so flimsy. Since I was already using up scraps of paper to finish up this project, I just tore a couple of pieces off, glued them down, and there are some touches of gold paint there. I don't think I added anything to this unless it was a little bit of gold paint that ended up stuck to this page over here. I went through and added writing that I felt was important. I want to remember who these people are. And let me just go back and say, she was part of the African choir that toured Victorian England. I felt it was important to put her name and that reference. While this is not a real person, there's a real painter behind this. I've put the references and the photo credits in every video in the video description. I encourage you to learn more about the artists that you're drawn to. It might help you discover what you really love about art. What is it that's talking to you? If you keep seeing a style over and over again that's speaking to you, find out why. Maybe there's something in the time period, or if you read about the artist, you will discover something that you have a connection to that you didn't know anything about. Here's our color palette. This is one of my favorite little parts to this whole thing. I found it to be so freeing to stick to just 3 colors. That sounds like a paradox, and yet when you give yourself a boundary, you don't struggle with, oh my goodness, should I pull blue in? Should I pull yellow in? Should I add another color? No, you can't. You've chosen 3 colors, stick to it, and as complex as things can get, no matter what, you're gonna find that your whole project is tied together with those 3 colors. I felt it was important to put her name here. She was a journalist, a real person in history. I don't think I added anything else to this page. We have the changemaker, Lucy Parsons, and I encourage you to bookmark places where you find pictures that you want to use over and over again. The Library of Congress has got a whole page of changemakers, and it's all centered around African American achievements and history and change. And there were some really beautiful images on that page. I don't think I added anything to this except a little bit of gold paint. I like to go ahead and use up everything that's left from my color palette. It did cross my mind to add some more string to her skirt. I didn't do that. I know I said I might put some gold in the center of this, but it didn't call out to me the second time because I put some here and here and then didn't touch that. Of course, this is the last spread that we did. I absolutely love this. Always look for the light. Even if it's a situation where you know it's not right, you know you need to change something, or you need to help somebody change something, or see something differently, or maybe somebody's trying to help you see something differently. And I'm just speaking from maybe recent events in my own life. If you look at the light, if you try to see the positive things before you speak, it might help you speak with a more gentle answer. And I'm speaking this especially for myself. I have a tendency to be emotional. I have a tendency to be impulsive. So it really helps me to stop and say, okay, what is the good in this? And how can I frame where I'm coming from in a way that's gonna be light and not just feel like anger falling down on somebody's head? I just love this image. Okay, this is the last full spread. I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to somehow use a crown, and the heaviest paper that I used came from that book cover. It had a lot of paint splatters on it. I decided to go ahead and use that to cut out a crown. I did think twice about having something so pointed and so narrow sticking out of the top of the book, but I did it anyway. I do plan to be careful with this. This is a beautiful piece just standing up and sort of out on display. But I know when we put things on a shelf and when things are held and looked at, there is the possibility that things like this can get bent. I went ahead, I went with it. I've included another little strip of paper that says fairy tales. That's from one of the book pages. I did not want to waste any of this beautiful paper that had all the beautiful stains on it. One of the pieces of paper that I had been using had these holes along the edge where these pieces of paper had been in sort of a notebook. And I just used one of the long pieces for a stencil to lay on the page and then take some gold paint, and that gave me those really pretty marks. In very faint white letters, here are the words, "Follow your heart." I think that is so important. And yet the Bible says that no man knows his own heart. And I've thought about this so much in my life because I have made decisions to go into something because my heart was pulling on me. But the older I get, the more I think that it wasn't my heart as much as my emotions. And our emotions can be really strong, especially when they're fresh. Time sort of allows things to calm down. I do think we should follow our hearts. And by that, I mean, what is your passion? What do you feel is right or important? It doesn't mean you have to act instantly. It's also good to stop and ask your brain, can I do this? What's making me feel this way? That's the key. Especially I have found as I've gotten older, when I'm feeling a certain way, and I'm tempted to act impulsively, I stop and ask myself, what is making me feel this way? And a lot of times, it's not even what I thought it was. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I did want to tell you that whenever I write follow your heart, or whenever I say that, I have so many other thoughts that come attached to that. Anyway, this is basically a collage of the last remnants of paper that I had, and I did want to use those up. I had talked about not using pink on this page, and you know, in the last spread, I talked about how things can seep through. I was especially focused on what is here going over to this page, but what I wasn't thinking about is the pink seeping through onto this sort of greenish blue. It ended up being perfect. I still have enough of this color to tie in with her dress. I was not going to cover her face, but then one of the pieces of a book page got the straight edge and it wrapped perfectly right around the side of her face. So that was a very intuitive thing. Getting over here to the last page, here's a saying I absolutely love. Every ending is a new beginning. To cover up the cardboard here, I took a large piece of paper that had all sorts of ink stain, acrylic paint that had been drying for a few days. I made some random marks. These words are painted on with the paintbrush, so, you know, things like that can feel messy. they can spread around and kind of, you know, creep into places that you didn't plan on having them. So I took a pen, a heavy Sharpie, and went around the edges, and that did sort of define everything. Here are the words, "Be brave," and then on the back, I've got my bird song stamped onto paper and just glued into place. I guess the summary of this is not so much a lesson as just sharing how it brings everything together to go ahead and use the scraps from your table. If there's something you want to try, do it like the crown. Yes, it's going to be standing up. Yes, it might get bent, but it also always reminds me to slow down and handle things with care. I'm so excited to have this done. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed putting this book together and all of these videos. This little strip of fabric, I didn't like having the wrong side of the fabric showing, so I folded it in half and stitched it with the sewing machine. On one side, there's a piece of vintage lace, and on the other side, there is the black string that we've used throughout. And I just really like it. I love the way it turned out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you want to share how your project turns out, I would love it if you would tag me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you publish your work. I am A Bit of Birdsong on all 3 platforms, at A Bit of Birdsong on Instagram, and you can tag me in your YouTube videos as A Bit of Birdsong, and Facebook. I have a group there that is growing slowly, and I would love for you to share pictures of your work there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back really soon. Bye for now.